Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying. Thursday is vlog day, so here we are. I'm actually recording this on Wednesday, but you'll be seeing it on Thursday, I hope, if you're watching it when it comes out. And if you're not, why are you so far behind? Watch it when it comes out. Anyway, there's one topic for this video, which I'll get onto in a second. However, before we get into that, I do just want to give a quick shout out to another channel, and that is Drift Games. Now, you may not know who they are. I might have mentioned them before, I can't remember. Anyway, if you've followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I've made quite a few comparisons between drifting and rallying in terms of media and promotion. So I wanted to give out a shout out to Drift Games because last night, so Tuesday night this would have been, their HQ building burned down. They're based in Ireland, in Dublin, and they had their HQ was in a facility called the Engine Block, which is actually a new kind of gathering place for a few automotive businesses, and that unfortunately burnt down yesterday. They haven't posted too much about it for obvious reasons, but I just wanted to give them a mention because I just think it's really sad news that that this has happened. You know, it looks like they've lost all of their cars or most of their cars. And a lot of other stuff besides, I'm sure. So it's just really sad. The reason I mention it, you know, I know not all of you will care about drifting, and I get that, but I think for me as an automotive content creator, the Drift Games channel has been a real inspiration. I think if you look at what they've achieved over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been fantastic. You know, they've gone from a relatively small channel to, you know, to well over 100,000 subscribers, and I think they're just doing amazing things. You know, I often, as I said, I often make the comparison between drifting and rallying, and whilst from a sporting perspective, I understand that there isn't a crossover, but I'm a strong believer that rallying could learn an awful lot from drifting when it comes to media production, social media promotion, engaging with people, especially younger people, and the guys at Drift Games were just an absolute model of how to do that. You know, as I said, you might not have heard of them, but they are a force behind the Drift Masters European Championship, which Callie Rothenpera has competed in. So, you know, they do kind of touch on our world a little bit. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that it's a real shame what's happened to them. I really hope they come back, and I would encourage all of you to just jump across their channel, jump across their socials, give them a follow, subscribe, watch some of their content, and see what they're all about. And hopefully, you know, that will give them the inspiration to come back bigger and better. I can't imagine how it feels to, you know, to watch your workshop burning down and all your cars and stuff. You know, they had a big collection of Japanese cars, Skylines and things. They just built a Lamborghini Gallardo drift kind of demo car. So they were. It's sad, you know. If you watch their previous video, they were really set up for an amazing year, and it looks like it's all just crumbled. So yeah, just give them a follow. Just wanted to give them a shout out because I really love what they do and respect what they do, and yeah, it's a real shame. Anyway, though, let's get into today's topic. Oh, it's a tough one, this, and the topic for this video is the new WRC regulations. And my, where do we even begin with this? Oh, so I'll try and keep it relatively brief. Basically, this week, Monday and Tuesday of this week, we had the latest FIA Commission meeting. We haven't heard too much of what was said, but obviously it was another discussion on the rule changes for next season and beyond. The only kind of thing that we've had as I record this, the only output we've had as I record this is that it was constructive. So they were always going to say that, weren't they? But to give you some context, obviously we are partway through the Rally 1 regulation cycle. Over the last few months, we've had the working group put together by the FIA, which is headed by David Richards of ProDrive and Robert Reed, former co-driver. So they did some work, and they have made this suggestion that in order to improve the sport, one of the things we should do is to scrap hybrid from next year and introduce a Rally 2 Plus World Rally Car kit to boost power, and then we should slowly restrict the Rally 1 concept and bring costs down and all this stuff. until 2027 when we bring in a new rule set which will likely be based on Rally 1. So that's kind of the basis for what's been happening. We have seen over the last couple of weeks some noise from the teams. So Hyundai said over the Safari Rally weekend that they needed clarification because they have apparently been working on an all-new Rally 1 car. So obviously that has been put on hold until they know what the new regulations look like. They even went as far as to say that depending on the direction, it could force them out of the championship. Now, that could just be a little bit of posturing to try and get some action, but it could also be a genuine statement. You know, Hyundai have been around a long time, they've achieved a lot, and it might just be that this is the thing that pushes them to leave, because ultimately manufacturers don't stay forever. So this might just be the thing that makes them reconsider, and you know, with their shift towards electric, and they might just decide that this is the time to go. So I think we do have to take that seriously. Then last week we had apparently a letter that was signed by all three manufacturers or all three teams to the FIA saying, we don't want this change, this is too much, too soon, and we want to keep Rally 1 until the end of 2026 as agreed, and then start fresh with a new set of regulations. Oh dear. Yeah, so there's lots going on. Rich Milner's also come out, I should mention that as well. He spoke to Dirtfish, was it last week or earlier this week, and said that he, again, you know, he very much believes that we should take a more considered approach to this. And it's a tricky situation. I think there's one thing we need to balance here. So I know a lot of people in fan terms are more than happy to see the back of hybrid. So that's part of it. But we've also got the manufacturer thing. You know, some people will say, well, the manufacturers are only in it for themselves, and that's true. And you know, we shouldn't pay too much attention to what they think. And I see that, and I think if you're in a healthy championship, I think you can do that. You know, if you've got, we talked about this on the Pondy's Tash podcast earlier in the week. If you've got 6, 7, 8 manufacturers, and one threatens to throw their toys out of the pram, well, you can kind of let them, can't you? Because you can afford to lose them. We are in a very different position, however. The WRC is not in that position. It has 2.5 manufacturers. So if, for example, Hyundai decided to leave at the end of this season because they weren't happy about the direction, that would be an unequivocal disaster. You know, we are in a position where we can't afford to lose Hyundai or Toyota, you know, or even Ford to some extent. So, you know, this is a different position. I think, you know, as Bob said on the Pondy's Tash podcast, the manufacturers probably have more power now than they might have done 20 years ago when we were in a position where we had lots of manufacturers. So we have to be mindful of that, because the reality is we can't afford to lose Hyundai or anyone else at this point. And I think that, you know, that brings us to a question, doesn't it? And the main purpose of this video, and that question is what is the best way forward? For me, I actually see where the teams are coming from. I am no fan of Rally 1. For me, Rally 1 is a flawed concept. It fundamentally goes against the purpose of rallying. You know, rallying has always been a formula based on production cars. You can argue that at times those cars have not been very production based. You know, if you look at Group B, the idea that Group B was based on production cars is a bit of a misnomer, because the cars were produced in such tiny numbers and no one really actually bought one. Even Group A cars were very, very heavily modified, and once you got into the World Rally Car era, you know, you look at a 2001 Ford Focus, under the skin, it's nothing like a Focus road car. So it is a bit of a stretch, but fundamentally, you know, we were rallying is a sport based around production cars. So I think switching to a space frame chassis for me is a mistake, and unfortunately, I think it's a mistake that they're going to stick with. You've also got the hybrid element. I know, as I've already said, a lot of you are glad to see the back of hybrid, and I understand that, but for me, hybrid isn't a problem. I have no issue with allowing hybrids. The issue I have is with the implementation. You know, the mistake that we've made is that we went with this spec hybrid unit supplied by a third party. That gave the manufacturers nothing to market because it wasn't their technology. It gave them everything to lose because if the hybrid system breaks, it still reflects badly on them. And it obviously increased costs to the point that no one wanted to join. All of that said, I think I kind of see where the manufacturers are coming from. You know, whatever we do over the next 2 years, no manufacturer is going to join the championship. No one is going to sign up to the WRC in 2025 or 2026. We might, if we get the regulations right for 2027, we might get a new manufacturer at that point. But if anyone, I don't know, Opel or I don't know, Cadillac, anyone, any manufacturer you can think of, Ferrari for goodness sake, any manufacturer that signed up to the WRC, they're 2 years out from starting. So no one is going to join before 2027. So you can kind of see where the manufacturers are coming from. Why bother making all these changes that are going to cost money, but aren't actually going to bring anyone new in and aren't potentially going to have that much impact? Because frankly, a Rally 1 car, if you remove the hybrid system, how many people are going to buy them? Probably not very many. Rally 2 kit or Rally 2 Plus, whatever you want to call it, World Rally Car kit. Are all the manufacturers going to produce those kits? No, I'm not so sure about that. I suspect there would be some demand, but the cost, this €5,000 figure that's been bandied about is ludicrous. You wouldn't be able to buy the rear wing for one of those cars for €5,000. So the idea that a €5,000 kit is going to upgrade those cars is fantasy. So I think you have to look at the value. Is anything actually going to change by bringing in this kit for Rally 2 and this reduced cost for Rally 1? I'm not sure it's going to make a huge amount of difference. So I do kind of see where they're coming from. I think for me, we have to be decisive. So in terms of the future, longer term, 2027 is probably the most important date in all of this, because at that point we have to bring in a set of regulations that are going to be attractive to manufacturers. And for me, there are some key things. And I know, as I say this, that the FIA are not going to listen, because the first part of that for me is ditching the Rally 1 space frame concept. Don't do it. I don't see any benefit to it. All I see is it taking rallying away from where it's from. And as I said on the Pondy's Tash podcast earlier in the week, what you're effectively doing, you have to ask yourself a question. At what point does a Rally 1 car just become something like a World Rally Raid Championship car? How, if you've got a space frame buggy with some composite body panels tacked to the outside of it, is it actually that different from, a Pro Drive Hunter or those T1 Hiluxes? Well, it's not really, is it? It's just another space frame prototype, and that is fundamentally not what the WRC is about. So I think that that's an issue, and if you go down that path, you start to dilute the DNA of the sport, and you start to remove its USP. So I think that is something to be avoided. For me, the long-term future is simple. It's Rally 2, kind of. So you take the lessons that have been learned from the space frame in terms of safety, side impact, the double roll hoop and all of that stuff, and you find a way to integrate that into a Rally 2 type car, so a production body shell. You find a way to integrate the double roll hoop, the increased side protection, all that stuff. Use that to evolve the basic safety regulations for Rally 2. So that's the first thing. So the cars have to retain a certain percentage of the body shell. They have to retain the roof rails and all of the structure. You can change the floor pan to make it four-wheel drive, but otherwise very restricted. And then we come to the powertrain, which is probably the most crucial thing. And that right now we don't know what the future is. We don't know if the future is internal combustion, pure electric, or hybrid. So I think, and I'm not the only one that said this, longer term, I think from 2027 we have to give the manufacturers options. We have to say, you can take your production body shell, you can make it four-wheel drive, but you have a choice of powertrain. You can go pure internal combustion if you want, you can go hybrid if you want, you can go pure electric if you want, if you can make it work. 2027, I don't think we'll be at a point where that can work, but we have to give them options and give them the freedom, and then we have to just find a way to balance that performance so that we don't end up with one particular technology running away from it. I know a lot of you don't like electric, a lot of you don't like hybrid, but it's coming, it's happening. We can't stop it. And if we want manufacturer involvement, we have to give them the freedom to demonstrate the technology. And the world will, it'll work it out. They'll find the best solution. That ultimately is what motorsport is about, isn't it? It's about innovation. So that for me is the solution. We go R5 with Rally 1 safety elements, and then powertrain freedom and a bit of balance of performance where necessary. That's the long term, because I don't see any way you can attract manufacturers without having that freedom. That then brings us to what to do for the next 2 seasons. And I think we have 2 fundamental choices. Either we have 3 fundamental choices, don't we? But the first choice is not to do anything. To just stick with Rally 1 as is, keep the hybrid until 2027 and do that. And keep Rally 2 as it is and just weather the storm, so to speak, accept that we're not going to get more manufacturers, accept we're not going to have more privateers, and just be done with it. That's option 1. That isn't my favourite option, but that is option 1. Option 2 is keep things as they are, but allow Rally 1 to run without hybrid. So if a privateer wants to buy a Rally 1 car, they can buy it without the hybrid system. That way, we'll get a few privateers, and I think we should do that, but have the weight regulations so that those cars are relatively competitive. We don't want the idea that they can run without hybrid, but they're ballasted up, so they're in no man's land. To me, is pointless. So I would run them at the at this just take the way out. They probably won't be as fast as a Rally 1 car as it is right now, but it might allow a couple of privateers. But again, this is a bit of a holding pattern. I don't think it's going to make much difference. Option 3 is the explosive option, isn't it? And that is scrap Rally 1 at the end of the season and go Rally 2 and use that as the path to 2027. That is the option that everyone, sorry, not everyone, but a lot of people favoured was going Rally 2. That way, all of the teams that are competing in Rally 1 right now have a car, because everyone has a Rally 2 car. And again, it's a holding pattern, isn't it? Until we get to the point of 2027. And by going with Rally 2 in the short term, we not only reduce costs for everyone, we also allow privateers to compete, because there are loads of privateers with Rally 2 cars. We get rid of all the complexity of Rally 2 Plus, and we just give ourselves a couple of years to get the next set of regulations right. I'm a little bit torn between option 1 and option 3. I kind of see the argument for sticking with how things are for the sake of placating the manufacturers for the short term. If keeping Rally 1 as it is for the next 2 seasons allows us to keep Hyundai into 2027 and beyond, perhaps that's worth doing. But otherwise, I think option 3 is the best one, where we just go to Rally 2 for 2 seasons and then have this kind of future multi-fuel option. But we find ourselves in a very tricky position, and I think what's concerning is that we're in a place now where there is not a united front. We're seeing friction between the FIA, the promoter, and the manufacturers, and that is not good. You do want a certain amount of friction. We can't always pander to the manufacturers, but we don't want to be in a place where the manufacturers start to threaten to leave, because we simply can't afford that right now. And we don't want the WRC to turn into a purely privateer customer championship. So there is some very, very complex questions to be asked. For me, as I said, I understand why the manufacturers are saying we have to stick with how things are, and if Hyundai say we're going to leave if that doesn't happen, I would probably stick with it ultimately. But the big thing here is finding the best solution for the next 2 years to get us to 2027, where we make a proper, meaningful change with a long-term strategy that accounts for whichever way the industry is going to go, and put that in place for a long time. We need to stop. I actually think this 5-year regulation cycle is silly. If you go back in time, Group A, for example, was around for 15 years. That is what we need. We need a 10-year homologation cycle. We need thought-out rules that allow flexibility for the changing face of the industry, but also allow stability, so you don't have to develop a brand new car every few seasons. So for me, everything has to build towards 2027, but we have to do that in a way that keeps the manufacturers we've got kind of on side, and is kind of just sensible. We're in a very difficult position where we just kind of have to navigate a couple of seasons. And for me, this throw the kitchen sink at it approach that we've seen over the last few weeks of Rally 2 Plus and get rid of hybrid and change the restrictors and reduce the cost and change the aero. That is one area where I agree with the teams. That is too much, too confusing, too complicated, and just unnecessary. Keep it simple. Either go Rally 2 for the next 2 seasons and then have your future-proof plan, or keep things as they are. I think Rally 2 Plus and Rally 1 Minus is confusing. And the last thing rallying needs right now is more confusion when you've got a silly point system. No one can watch it because it's behind a paywall. It's just not good luck. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I went on a bit longer than I thought I would. I'm going to end this with a question, and that is, what do you think? What option do you think we should pursue for the next, not just for the next 2 seasons, but for the next 10 seasons? You know, should we make the big difficult change right now? Should we wait until 2027? And if so, what should that big change be? And what should we do in the meantime? You know, what is the solution for next season and the season after that? Do you think Rally 1 is viable? Do you think it is the future? Do you think we should scrap it? Do you think Rally 2 is good? Do you think we should go back to something completely different or something completely new? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so do drop them below. As always, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow me on socials, and as I said, do give Drift Games a look, because those guys are obviously having a much worse week than the rest of us, and I'm sure they would appreciate your support and encouragement to get back on the horse and rebuild. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you again in the next video.